the specific outcomes that we want to achieve in this section? We want to understand how accountants recognize a sale and when they recognize the sale. Obviously, like most sections, we want to identify the related risks in having credit sales and how does the business get affected by these risks. We further want to advance our understanding of the cash conversion cycle. All of these are important aspects of the business cash conversion cycle. So let us have a look at what happens with sales once we introduce credit sales. In the previous section, all the sales were for cash, so the cash was received immediately on the exchange of the goods. Now, we're going to supply the goods to the customer. So the money we invested in those goods is going to go and sit for a period in the debtor's reservoir. Only after a specified period, usually 30 days, will we receive the cash for those goods. Let me ask a question. When is the sale really taking place? Does it take place when the goods leave this reservoir and go to the debtor's reservoir? Or does it take place when the debtor pays on the agreed date of payment? When do you think that this transaction should be recorded in the books? Should it be recorded here where it leaves the finished goods reservoir? Or should it be recorded when we receive the monies? And at what value must it be recorded at? Because remember, if we have marked the goods up, in other words, we have made the selling price higher than what the cost of our investment was, then we are going to receive back more money than what we gave out in the beginning. So when we transact or when we record this transaction, should it be at this higher value? Now, per international standards and per the IFRS and the general rules of accounting that apply in the various countries, the sale is recognized by accountants when the risk transfers. In other words, when the risk around these goods transfers to the customer. So generally speaking, it's where the customer takes ownership of the finished goods. That's where the transaction gets recorded. So looking at our model here, it means as the goods flow out of this reservoir, we should record the transaction. But at what value now? And the reason I'm asking this question is, let us say that the customer doesn't pay for the goods at the end of the day. In other words, the customer fails to pay for the goods and the goods are gone. Have we lost the selling price? And if we go to our kitchen cabinet manufacturer, if he supplied goods to a customer, those goods cost him $2,000. The customer agreed to pay him $5,000. Did he lose $5,000 if that sale doesn't get paid for? Or did he lose $2,000 if that sale doesn't get paid for? My question is important because in the accounting world, we recognize the sale as having taken place where the goods are delivered and the transfer of the risk around those goods has gone to the customer. So in this example, we would record the sale as $5,000 at this point. Now in your mind, you should see that we only invested $2,000. So if we only invested $2,000, then if that never ever gets paid for, we have only lost $2,000. But because accounting convention has measured the sale at this point, it has said the sale or the turnover, as it's normally commonly referred to, is for $5,000. And if that debt never gets paid, then the write-off has to be the reversal of that $5,000. However, the cabinet maker is out of pocket for $2,000, not $5,000. This is one of the problems with the accounting world. One must also remember, why would customers want to buy on credit? Well, seen from their perspective, it is a cheap form of raising capital. If they haven't got the money to pay for the goods, they would need to go and lend that money from a third-party institution like a bank, and the bank will charge them interest. But if we, as the supplier, supply them with these goods on credit, we are not going to charge them interest. And therefore, they are going to raise this capital in their business, or these goods in their business, on an interest-free basis. Usually when you go to a bank to raise a loan, you have to give some form of security. Now, companies don't normally get their debtors to sign some form of security in order to buy goods from them. It's used as a form to encourage customers to come purchase. I stated a bit earlier that accountants generally recognize the sale where the risk transfers. And this generally is when the goods leave the company and is described as ex works. However, there are many types of sales and the risk can transfer at a later point. So in the simple model that we're depicting here, the risks transfer ex works, or where they leave the premises and get handed over to the customer. But where is that point? Well, some customers say, no, I would like you to deliver the goods to my premises. And it gets more complex where these sales go across a border, because that sale, or the time taken for the goods to leave the premises and to arrive at the customer's premises, may take a few weeks in certain cases. Now, when does the ownership transfer then in such a case? Because that's open to a lot of interpretation. There's a set of rules that were devised internationally, and these rules are called Incoterms. Now, Incoterms defines when the goods actually change hands. Now, if we say it's ex works, does it change hands when we put it onto the vehicle, or does it change hands when it drives through the gates of the premises? Alternately, if we're going to go onto a ship, does it change hands when the goods are loaded onto the ship where the waybill has been made out? Or does it change hands when it gets to port? And which port? Does it change hands at this port where it leaves? Or does it change hands where it arrives at the foreign port? This is also complex if the goods are shipped by plane. Because does it change hands when it goes on the plane, or does it change hands when it gets offloaded on the plane on that side? Some companies request that the goods are delivered to their premises and that the duties have been paid. All of these areas carry with it risks, and these risks can be quite complex. Many times there are many disputes around whether a sale has taken place or not, especially where the goods have been damaged or the goods have disappeared en route to the customer. Whose goods got lost? Who carries that damage? Accountants very, very quickly refer to the legal documentation. And seen from this model perspective, that can be fairly simple to establish. However, in the practical world, it isn't always. And I'm going to leave the discussion here because in a later section of this course, we will go into what are the real risks involved around such transactions. How difficult are they to monitor? And can one enforce this ex works agreed change of ownership? Or are there other factors at play that aren't really governed by international law?